Hello everyone and welcome to Module 10, Exploring New Media. In this module, if you click in the module introduction, it points out that the information we find online is often given a bad rap. People tend to judge it quickly and negatively, and certainly the internet is something like the Wild West. It can be free of governing principles, and it can be difficult to manage, and when everyone with an internet connection can create content, there will most certainly be bad content out there, but the presence of bad content should not relegate us to the sidelines. Most new knowledge is also being shared online, and so a version of literacy that accounts for the migration in digital spaces is imperative. In other words, we need to be able to look online and see things and evaluate whether those resources are credible, whether they're accurate, whether we can trust that information or not. And then if not, then we need to be able to go and find accurate and credible sources that has information that we can trust. This week you're going to learn about new media, and you'll take a look at an example of commentary and analysis written for digital distribution in the form of YouTube deep dive videos. You'll then complete a journal assignment in which you discuss the research process on display. So you're going to look at new media, and you want to be able to look at how the research process was conducted and determine and evaluate whether this research was whether it was a good method of research, whether there are weaknesses to the research methods, and so forth. If you take a look at the reading 15 Steps of Good Research, it points out various steps that are important to conducting good research. You want to have this up on your screen when you are watching the videos and when you are typing your work, because you want to refer back to this repeatedly to determine whether the people that are in these new media presentations are actually following these sorts of steps and are therefore conducting research to present accurate information to you. So make sure that you're familiar with that text. If I click out to Journal 10-1, you'll see what the assignment is. You're going to explore research techniques and citation methods that you've read about as they're used in popular media, specifically a YouTube video. Choose one of the following links, so not both, just one, that you're going to analyze in terms of their research strategies. Either This TikTok Girl Band Ruined My Life by Grady Smith, or I watched one SNL episode from every season. So you're going to choose one of them and you want to view it critically. This isn't about whether you agree with the topic. This isn't about summarizing what they say. This is about analyzing their research process and determining if they use sources, if they use credible source materials. Okay, so here are some various questions that you need to answer. Again, I recommend that a general structuring would be a paragraph per bullet point. Okay, this needs to be at least 300 words, and it should be an MLA style, like everything that will not everything, I should backtrack on that. But it should be an MLA style, formatted in MLA style with a works cited page that will include this Georgetown University 15 Steps of Good Research. It should also include your works cited page or works cited entry for your video. And that's what you want. So you want to address what is the leading research question that drives the text. Describe in detail the steps this person takes to answer the questions. What specific strategies are implemented to track down the answers the individual seeks. How many and which steps did this individual take that are outlined in the Georgetown University source? So you need to quote the source. In this case, you should be referring to both your video source and the Georgetown University source. So I should be seeing in-text citations here, right? I should be seeing in-text citations from the video source for the first one as well. Does the individual's use of source material, discuss the individual's use of source material? In other words, Where does the person's investigation take him or her? What sources are used to find the answers to the questions? So are they using credible sources, do you think, or are they crappy sources? What kinds of sources are they using? I'm going to talk a little bit more about those in a moment. And discuss the conclusions that the person comes to. Did they answer their question? If so, how did they arrive to that answer, and so forth. Now, if I pull up this article, this text uses different kinds of sources. I want to discuss with you real fast what kinds of sources are generally credible and which ones aren't. So this text is about the debate on whether caffeine consumption is beneficial or harmful. It poses a central research question: is caffeine good or bad for our health? When you do your research for your video, when you're looking at your video, you have to identify what is the central research question. What is the question that is driving that person to investigate this topic? So you want to identify the central research question, and in this text, it's just very clearly stated. On one hand, research published by the American Heart Association. Now think about this for a moment, and you can even go and look up the American Heart Association. Would this be a credible source of information, do you think? Most likely you'll say yes, because we're talking about a huge organization that is doing scientific research. Scientific research tends to be credible source information. It's not always the case. There are some things that slip through the peer review process and so forth. There are some junk details that get published, but for the most part, the scientific research follows a scientific method, which is evidence-based, which is not based in personal experience necessarily or personal bias. And so it tends to be free from bias and tends to be much more justifiable in terms of the credibility of the evidence. Okay, the evidence exists regardless of what we think or feel about it. And so this is probably a credible type of source. When you're looking at your video, you should be thinking and you should be writing about, is this person going to a credible source of information? It gives here, according to a 2020 study, so a different study, participants who drank 2 to 3 cups of coffee daily had a 17% reduced risk of developing cardiovascular disease. So we're consulting yet again another high-quality source. Dr. Lisa Brown, a lead author of the study. So we have someone with credentials here. So chances are that they're more likely to give accurate information than Joe Schmo living in grandma's basement and hoping that, he'll somehow create a future for himself. That guy that's living down there that has no qualifications and yet is posting all sorts of trash on the internet is less likely to have credible information than someone who has been trained and is using scientific research and scientific methodologies to come up with information. So this is probably credible information that we're seeing in this paragraph. In the next paragraph, it says, however, not all experts agree on the positive effects of caffeine. A popular health blog, Wellness Daily, argues that excessive caffeine consumption can lead to these things. Now again, the source is what I'm talking about here. It says a popular health blog. Now, a popular health blog could contain accurate information, right? But it could contain inaccurate information as well, because it's not necessarily that this is a popular health blog written by experts, which has a team of experts that are looking at the articles and making sure that the information is accurate. We're just told it's a popular health blog. So this is something that we would need to treat with a little more care and consideration. This is a source where we would go, you know what? This information I might need to check up on. I might need to follow up with other sources, other credible sources like other studies, and see if the studies agree with this source. Okay? In a 2018 article titled The Hidden Dangers of Caffeine, the author cites anecdotal evidence from individuals who report withdrawal symptoms such as headaches and irritability after cutting back on caffeine. Now, we have an article now that's being included, and the author cites anecdotal evidence. For those of you who don't know what this means, anecdotal evidence is evidence that comes from a person's personal experience. So the author either gives their own personal experience as evidence, or they have someone else who tells their story, and they then take that story and include it as evidence. Now, anecdotal evidence is very limited because it's highly subjective. You're getting one person's personal take on something they've experienced. But is one person's take on something indicative of overall truth or something that can be generalized for a larger population? No. One person might have these symptoms after cutting back on caffeine, and then 99 out of 100 people, or 99 other people out of this one group of 100, say, would not have that. So anecdotal evidence tends to be used more for an emotional or a pathetic appeal, right, which we've talked about, for pathos, to like get people to feel something, sympathy for someone's experience or story. But it's not good quality evidence overall, because one person's experience does not necessarily translate to everyone's experience. So when you when you look at the videos, if there's anecdotal evidence, you should treat it with more suspicion than evidence that is being filtered through the scientific method. Okay? Adding complexity to the debate, the Mayo Clinic. And you would look up the Mayo Clinic and you would find that it is a reputable research hospital. So that's a strong, credible source. Does it give others here? While scientific studies offer useful insights, the personal and anecdotal accounts often shared on blogs or social media can blur the lines between fact and opinion. Oh yeah, should you be getting data from social media? Probably not. I mean, as we've seen, algorithms generate that information. Misinformation spreads more rapidly than accurate information. So when you are looking at your sources for this assignment and you're analyzing the source material that they're looking at, you need to be able to evaluate whether they're using credible, accurate sources or if they're using ones that are inaccurate or less credible. Okay? So that's your assignment for this week. If you have any questions, send me an email, and good luck.